So here we are. I'd like everybody to know how excited I am to break down the top 10 outfielders of Scout the Statline. This is going to be a lot of fun. There are everything that you want in players combined into the top 10. You got guys that have speed, you have guys that have power, you have guys that have speed and power. It's a great crop of outfielders this year.
This is going to be some of the best players that we talk about through this entire series.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. But before we get into it too hard, Ross, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm a little mentally drained right now. I'm not going to lie. I've been burning the candle at both ends, really working hard, especially on the Scout the Statline stuff. I do have some exciting news. We have pitching translations. They're ready. They're in the hopper. In fact, right now, our paying members have access to all of the boards that we've created that include pitchers. So it's kind of the early access period right now as we're trying to refine some of that. So there's going to be some tweaks that are still made in the coming weeks, but it's really close and it looks so good. I'm really thrilled about it. And we're going to be able to cover the top 10 pitchers here pretty soon too. And I mean, this is the biggest update that we've had all off season, and we've done a lot of work this off season. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, we're going to wake you up with outfielders, but I do want to say something on the pitchers that you're going to be introducing on the site. I have no idea how to scout pitchers. I will be the first one to admit I might as well have a dartboard and I'm just throwing darts. Hey, this guy's got a good walk ratio. Go get him. I don't have any way to do it. I'm awful at it and I need some help. And I think it's going to help a lot with STS.
You know, you said something in the Dynasty Guru Discord that I thought was awesome. You said that you struggle sometimes trying to crack the code, and now you found a cheat code, or it's going to be a cheat code. I loved that. That was great.
It's definitely going to be a cheat code, guys. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
With that, the beer of the pod.
Yeah.
Tonight,
my favorite part of the pod, and it's going to be great tonight. It's going to hit different.
Yeah. I got a good one tonight too. One that I drank quite a bit, but this one here is called Dirt Church. Have you ever had some Dirt Church, Ross?
I have, yeah.
So Dirt Church is pretty popular up here. I don't know regionally how many people can get it around their areas and stuff like that, but this is out of the Bitterroot Brewing. Bitterroot Brewing is in Hamilton, Montana. I actually didn't know that, but it's described as a juicy, hazy, and hoppy IPA. But I'll give you guys a pour, and I'm debuting a mason jar. Take a look at her.
Okay, my turn. So my beers keep getting a little bigger and a little boozier. So I guess it's just a good way for me to power through the show is getting a little bigger beer and a little boozier. This one is an old-fashioned double imperial ale. So it's going to be strong. Deadfall is the name. And this is from Powderhouse Brewing Company right here, local, Boise, Idaho.
Is this something that you've had before?
I have never had this beer.
Okay.
Says it is aged in Barbados rum barrels with orange peel, cherries, and bitters. So I have no idea what this is going to taste like. But I will tell you a little bit about Powderhouse. I have not had a lot of their beer. I have been to their brewery before, so I've tasted some of their stuff, but it's not a regular place that I check out. This is what they say on their website. The Powderhouse brand resonates with outdoor enthusiasts. The adventurous and wanderlust seeking a refuge from the storm. Very poetic. Powderhouse beers pair perfectly with Idaho's thriving outdoor lifestyle. So I've noticed this, maybe this is just an Idaho thing, but every brewery that you go to will say the exact same thing. They're going to all tell you they're really embracing the outdoor lifestyle. Let's get out and hike. Let's get out and do this and that. How do you think it would go if a brewery went the opposite direction and they were like,
stay indoors and watch
couch
TV.
potatoes. You guys that like to sit at home and drink beer and watch football or whatever. All right, here goes my pour. I did have this nicely frosted cup, but it's, can you even see that?
There it is.
Okay, let's give this a shot. It's pretty good. You can definitely pick up on that orange peel that it said was in there. It does have a little bit of a barrel flavor like you might expect from a whiskey barrel-aged beer, but it's not super strong. Yeah, that's good. I like that more than I think most of my barrel-aged beers that I drink.
Nice.
Good.
So it's a winner. And as always, if you guys have beers that you want us to try, tell us their names, whatever you guys want us to do. I'll drink whatever beer you put in front of me. It's fine.
Yeah, drop a comment. We'll check it out. One more thing I want to talk about, not beer related, but I'm wearing a shirt.
Oh yeah.
And I want to showcase this. This is this right here is Lame. Lame is the name of our baseball league. Me and Brian play in a league together. And this is the 1K Wins Club. So everybody in our league, once they cross that threshold of 1,000 career wins, which we track everything. We got all the records there. Once they cross that threshold, they get a shirt. And I am one of 7 people in our league that has 1,000 wins. So I just wanted to touch on the shirt. Brian's another one. He also has 1,000 wins. I know
it's because of longevity with me. It's not because I'm really good at it. It's because I've been in the league since the start. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the top 10 outfielders though, because I'm just stoked to go through this.
Top 10. Here we go. Suspense. You could cut it with a knife. Number 9, Sal Frelick. And Sal Frelick was drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers, round number 1, pick number 15, out of Boston College. He stands about 5'10", weighs 180 pounds, got the build, got the looks. He looks like a baseball player, Ross. Now give me those stats, man.
All right. Sal Frelick out of Boston College. He was a first-round pick, number 15th overall by the Brewers. They started him out in the low minor leagues, and right from the get-go, the guy was just a hitting machine. So this is a guy coming out of college who had a career 345 batting average, 435 OBP, and a 521 slugging percentage. His rookie year in the minor leagues, he hit 329 with a 414 OBP and a 466 slugging percentage. I think this is pretty consistent with what he showed in college. I think he's showing better than expected plate discipline, but not a lot of power and a pretty good hit tool. And a guy that gets on base, well, he's showing that more than I would have expected. He can steal the occasional bag as well. This year, one other tidbit that was across 3 levels: rookie, single A, and high A. This season, he started out at high A, and he was promoted to double A and eventually finished the year at triple A. And you're right, like on a rocket ship, as you like to say. Throughout the season, the trend is beautiful. It's the kind of thing you want to see. I'll start by highlighting his overall line, and then I'm going to step through it. And there's a reason I want to do it like that. On the season, overall, aggregate, he hit 331 with a 403 OBP and a 480 slugging percentage, 11 home runs and 24 stolen bases. He walked 52 times and struck out 63. So he's a high contact guy. He's going to put the ball in play most of the time when he gets up. So now let me walk through the different levels. Started the year at high A. He got 92 plate appearances there, only hit 291. Double A, where most of his plate appearances on the season came from, he hit 317. And then triple A, where he got another 217 plate appearances, almost as much as he got in double A, he hit 365.
Yeah.
So throughout the season, moving up levels, he was hitting better and better. And that's what you want. And it's across the board. His OBP was rising throughout the season. It dropped a little bit at double A after high A, so he was taking a little less walks. But it's increased again in triple A. Slugging percentage also increased. This is a guy that you want to probably target because he is on the trend. The last time I recall seeing this, and it was that obvious, was Giancarlo Stanton coming into the major leagues. All of a sudden, he was swatting home runs every single
he's not just on a rocket ship to the moon. He's blowing right past the moon and going to Mars. Sal is on fire and probably one of the hottest prospects I can think of in all of the major league.
So Sal Frelick has a career 331 batting average. And I want to highlight this because right now, up to this point in his career, he's all about the batting average. Yeah. Counting stats are not going to be extreme with this guy, except for the occasional stolen base. In fact, I think you could say some of his comparables in the major leagues are guys like Luis Arias and Jeff McNeil.
Okay. I have one that I really like a comp for him as Andrew Benintendi.
I could see that. I could see that too. I think Benintendi, he hasn't hit with much power recently, but I think he came into the league with more power than we're going to see from Frelick.
Yep.
But I'm really interested in this guy. I think it's a guy you definitely want to target and go get if you can get him at a reasonable cost. I found in some of my leagues is not that reasonable, actually, surprisingly. But if people are paying attention to that trend, they're seeing the same thing that we are. But if they're not, this is a good guy to obtain right now.
I am 50% sure, which is pretty high, that he will debut in the major leagues in 2023.
He should be a major leaguer in 2023. There's no doubt in my mind.
And fairly early, like before the All-Star break, like way before the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Especially one injury in Milwaukee's outfield, and we got Sal Roman center field.
He has the potential to be one of the guys that's competing for batting titles.
Yep, that's what I wanted to touch on. Was all I see is batting title.
Yeah. So his scout grade equivalencies will tell that story. He has a 70 for his hit tool, which would be among the highest in the minor leagues that we'll find. 35 for power, below average power.
Boy, that's low.
And 55 for speed, so just above average. That's exactly what I'm seeing from his profile.
Yep.
That's exactly what he is.
Yep. Not a whole lot of growth in body type, in my opinion. 5'10", 180, going to stick right around that, and which is perfectly fine. And here we go. We're going to jump into number 8. Ross is going to have a lot to say about this one. I can already see it on his face. Ross is going to have a lot to say. Jackson Chourio, and he's sitting in the Double-A affiliate for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was born in Venezuela. He is 18 years old, already in Double-A. I'm going to say that again. 18 years old, already in Double-A. And Ross, I know you are a big fan I know Scout the Statline is a big fan. I will touch on Jackson here for just a little bit. So 2021, once again, 17-year-old season, had 159 at-bats in the DSL, the Dominican Summer League. He had 5 home runs, 8 stolen bases, average of 296, on-base percentage of 386, slugging 447. Just really, really nice stats in
Solid numbers,
the
but you
Dominican.
can't make much out of that at the
Nope.
DSL level, right? As a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
He didn't do anything to dissuade what you want to like in a player.
Yeah.
Let's end it at that. So in 2022, once again, he's 18 years old. He starts out in single A ball, 250 at bats, bats 324, on base percentage 373, slugged 600. So that's 12 home runs, and then added another 10 stolen bases on top of that. He gets promoted to A plus, has 127 at bats. His average set at 252, so it dipped pretty hard. On base percentage 317, slugged 488, still had 8 home runs, 4 stolen bases, struck out 31 times, had 32 hits. So we're in that zone that I like, and then had 11 walks. Milwaukee had enough confidence in that 252 average to just say, well, he's 18 years old, he's ready. Let's send him to Double A and see what he's got. He got 23 plate appearances. He only had 2 hits in 23 plate appearances. He walked twice. He struck out 11 times. But at this point, he's 18 years old. He's in Double A. So they think the world of him. He's got the stats before the 23 at bats in Double A. Ross, start gushing, my friend.
Okay, I'm going to start by saying this. Here at Scout the Statline, we are age to level truthers. And that's why this guy, in my estimation, is extremely talented and probably even underrated by Scout the Statline that's looking at the averages. Because when I look at his advancement through the minor leagues this year and seeing that as an 18-year-old, he had success at high A. Can you think of the last 18-year-olds that accomplished that even played at that level?
Juan Soto.
Played at it successfully.
Juan
Soto, Wander Franco, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I mean, those are the kind of guys that he's in the company with. So we're talking about an incredible talent.
Yeah.
And it's gotten noticed enough that Baseball America has put him as their number 2 prospect. He's number 2 overall. Apparently he's a defensive whiz, and that's not even, we're not even calculating that into his numbers here. So he can hit with power. And the interesting thing about his 2022 season, because I keep an eye on these guys like a hawk early on in the season. And I was kind of thinking Edwin Arroyo was going to be the 18-year-old to break out ahead of Chourio. Early on in the season, he was putting together pretty solid numbers, but he had no home runs. And then once those home runs started coming, it was like the floodgates opened. And he was just crushing the ball until he got that promotion into high A. So he was really hot in high A when he first got there. He cooled a little bit, and I think he kind of cooled to finish the season out, playing way above his level for his age. I mean, he's facing 26-year-old pitchers with professional experience by the time he's getting into A. So really just kind of overmatched at that level, but he held his own, and I think that's pretty special. Now that I've said all of that, and I am a big supporter of Chourio, my personal rankings, I have him as the number 2 outfielder, just to say like how much of a fan I am of this guy. But I want to also now put a bit of a wet towel on top of that. he strikes out quite a bit. He doesn't walk very much. Those are things that I watch very closely. So there is some risk in how that translates to the major league level. He's going to have to learn to be a little more polished with his approach. The reason that I'm not super concerned with that is because of the comparables that I laid out. You know who another one of those guys is Fernando Tatis Jr. And he has a profile that's probably even more similar to Chourio, where he's not a guy that's working counts. He's just smashing the ball. And he's found a lot of success as a pro just smashing the ball, assuming that wasn't like PED driven or something like that.
Sure.
So let's talk comp. Jackson Chourio. Oh, another reason to love Jackson Chourio. His comp is Dale Murphy. He gets a Hall of Fame comp. I mean, we're going to talk about guys above him that have comps to like Ian Desmond and stuff. So why does he get Dale Murphy? I mean, I don't think our system is that advanced that it's sniffing out Hall of Fame talent, but there's something to say about that. 2-time MVP, led the league in home runs twice. Pretty awesome career. Long career too.
So we're talking about a MVP, Hall of Fame,
MVP.
2-time MVP, Hall of Fame comp for Jackson. That's a big deal, guys. I have all the faith in the world in the STS. Go get him.
Go get him. That's right.
All right. Another one of my guys that I'm just really excited about. And I think he's got one of the coolest nicknames. It works perfect. But we're talking about Pete Crow-Armstrong, and I like to call him PCA. And I think it's perfect. PCA. He's 6 foot, 184 pounds, 20-year-old. He was drafted in the first round, number 19 overall by the New York Mets. He did get traded from the Mets to the Cubs. We have Pete Crow-Armstrong, PCA. Ross, would you like to break him down just a little bit for me?
Absolutely. Happy to. PCA. He debuted in 2021 at single A. Very small sample size. Only had 32 plate appearances, but he hit 417 in that small sample. And he walked more than he struck out. Not much to make out of it. No home runs, but promising. Mm-hmm. And he was a guy that even at that point, I was kind of interested in seeing if I could obtain him. He did have a season-ending injury. That was PCA, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, he had a season-ending injury that really stalled out a really promising start.
Yep.
Then 2022 rolls around and he starts again back at single A. Of course, that makes sense after only getting those 32 plate appearances. He was hitting 354 through 183 plate appearances before they finally promoted him to high A. And I think he kind of started meeting his match there, still put together a respectable season, 288 plate appearances, hit 287 with a 333 OBP and a 498 slugging percentage, still hit 9 home runs. On the season, he hit 16 home runs with 32 stolen bases. That's pretty notable.
Yep.
A lot more speed than I would have expected too. And overall, 312 batting average, 376 on base percentage, 520 slugging percentage. He just has a hitter's profile.
Yep.
He's like a ball player. And, he gets a lot of comps, or I think this guy's had a rivalry dating back to like high school with Bobby Barrels, who we previously covered. And I think he was always kind of playing second fiddle to him. But I would say he's the better hitter, at least based on what I can see in front of me right now.
I don't think he's got the power of Bobby Barrel. but you're on the right track.
But why not? Who hit more
Because
home runs this year?
Because I love Bobby Barrel. But I don't want to get away from that. I love PCA. And one thing that I want to just touch on real quick, I think, and you mentioned it, it took him a while to promote him. And I think that was on purpose. I mean, the injury concern that he had the season before, I think this was to make sure that he was healthy and sitting in not lower competition, but an equal competition. Let's give him plenty of at bats, make sure he's good to go, and then get him promoted to high A. And this might be another one of the rocket ships that I always talk about.
So PCA gets a comp to David Wright. So I mentioned before that I felt like he was a professional hitter. This guy's just he's a ball player. And I thought the same thing about David Wright. So I think it's a really nice comp too. Scout the Statline has him coming up in 2024. He'd be 22 years old. And if he has a similar career to David Wright, I mean, that's borderline Hall of Fame.
I was going to say, without injuries, David Wright is a no doubter Hall of Famer. No doubter. He just couldn't stay healthy, which I hate that coming to PCA just because he's already had the one injury. But that's a great comp. David Wright.
We've had a couple good ones in a row. That's how you know we're getting up to the real elites.
Yeah. What is your take on PCA? Do you want to go all in on him? Do you want to wait and see the first half of 2023 to see what he does? Because he'll be, I would guess they're going to start him in Double-A. That would be my take. They're going to start him in Double-A. Would you go get him now? Would you wait till mid-season to see how he plays in the first half?
No, I'm in on him. I'm in on this guy. I have him ranked a little higher than Scout the Statline, actually. I mean, one spot higher. So we're very close, but yeah, I'm a fan, and I think his profile looks really nice to me.
Yep.
I would like if he walked a little bit more, of course, but that's my thing, you know. No real discernible red flags to me. Usually with a prospect, I could be like, this guy's going to be awesome. Couple red flags. Not really much.
No.
The plate discipline could be improved, but I don't think it's red flag territory.
I think he's got a build type too that's already solid. It's already major league, ready. 6'4" or 6 foot 184 at 20 years old. He's got the strength and stuff to do it. So I'm not concerned there that he needs to build strength and grow into his body and stuff like that. The nice thing is he could still pack on some pounds and power.
These young guys, they can still grow.
Yeah, they could. My face might turn red a little bit on this one. I might get a little upset. Something happened in our hometown league that I wasn't happy about, but let's talk about the player. And that's Mr. James Wood. He's in the Single A affiliate. He's 20 years old for the Washington Nationals. He was drafted by the San Diego Padres in the second round. Huge guy. Huge. He's 6'7", 240. And plays in the outfield. James Wood was also part of the package to acquire Juan Soto and Josh Bell. Ross, would you please dive into a little bit of the stats on James Wood?
He had a very good debut, but it was one that I liked the numbers, but I was still a little skeptical because the strikeout rate was pretty high. In 101 plate appearances with the Padres after getting drafted, he hit 372 with a 465 OBP and a 535 slugging percentage. At the rookie level,
He added 10 stolen bases.
10 stolen bases. And this is something interesting that I'm gonna beat the drum on a little bit, because this is a big guy, and it's presumed he's got a huge power potential, but he's got sneaky speed. He's got really sneaky speed.
Yep.
10 stolen bases out of 10 attempts. I was still in wait and see mode because the strikeout rate was very high. He had a good walk rate, but a very high strikeout rate. This year, promoted to single A, he was hitting .337 with a .453 OBP and a .601 slugging percentage with the Padres before that trade to the Nationals happened, and really addressed the plate discipline concern that I had right off the bat. Most of the season early on, he was walking as much or more than he struck out. And it was only until a little bit later, about the time he got injured, that the strikeouts started adding up a little bit more. So that addressed the biggest concern that I had with his profile. And I was all in, chips all in at that point. Gonna go get him wherever I can, however I can, because this guy seems like he is the next thing. I think, and I'm speculating a little bit, that when he came back from injury, he was still a little hampered by that.
Yep.
So the rest of the season, his statistics weren't as good. Strikeouts were a little bit higher. Walks weren't quite as high. He got traded, so he's dealing with a lot of changes. So there's just a lot of stuff going on with him after that point. He struggled when he came back, rookie affiliate, and then after he went to the Nationals, he put up fine numbers. They were fine numbers. You can't complain about those. 293, 366, 463. They just weren't those eye-popping numbers that we saw at the beginning of the season. I think the real James Wood is the James Wood that we saw at the beginning of the season, when he was nice and healthy. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Lots of sneaky speed on the season. He in 348 plate appearances, so just over half a season of plate appearances, roughly. 20 stolen bases, which you wouldn't expect from a big supposed power hitter. 12 home runs, slugged .536. He projects for an average of 16 home runs per 600 plate appearances and 15 stolen bases. So they see a totally different player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be that player. I think he's got a good hit tool. And I think the power is going to show up, and he's probably not going to run so much when he gets bigger. No. So I'm actually with the scouts and the people that are saying that they think he's this type of player. I think he's probably more that type of player too. Yeah. I think Scout the Statline has it wrong on this guy. Yeah. But they are seeing something special. I really like this guy. I think now he's risen to the ranks in prospect lists where he's probably not cheap. But if you're paying attention to Scout the Statline, you could have got him for Khalil Watson.
One major concern that I have, he's 20 years old. He's 20 years old. He's 6'7" and 240 already. Really got to keep an eye on that weight. I don't want to see that fluctuation and stuff, and see him having to really bear down to keep his weight at a reasonable level. That is a big human being, and that is a big human being moving very, very fast. Mm-hmm. I would keep an eye on this one to make sure there's no lingering injury concerns. That's a big human being, man. I had another prospect that I was all in on, and I loved him, and he was huge. His name was Kyle Blanks.
Oh.
He could never stay healthy. So I want you to be very cautious on the health standpoint.
Always some risk. Brian has PTSD. Don't listen to him. There's all sorts of things that I want to say.
Yeah.
Yes, being bigger could mean that there's more injury risk. Could. We don't know, because we don't know how to predict that.
It doesn't have to be.
But on the flip side, there's this giant human being that just hit 62 home runs out there, right? Aaron Judge. And usually with these big guys, what they say is they don't develop until they're older. But we're seeing this from James Wood at 19 years old.
Yep.
So I think that's incredibly promising.
All right, jumping into our next one. We have number 5 on Scout the Statline's top 10 outfield list. 24-year-old. He was drafted in the 10th round, number 296 overall out of Florida Southern. Mr. Vaun Brown. This is somebody that I have watched quite a bit. He does not disappoint in any place, but let's run through it. Mr. Vaun Brown. So in 2021, when he was drafted, they sent him to the rookie affiliate, which is appropriate. Not an aggressive assignment at all, because he was a 23-year-old already, but let's get his feet wet. He was a 10th rounder. Let's see what he can do. He had 79 at bats, batted .354, had an on-base percentage of .480, slugged .620, 2 home runs, 8 stolen bases, strikeout 29 times, hit 28 times. Once again, it's rookie ball. It's only 78 at bats, but obviously the average is there. So let's dive into some meaningful stats. Obviously, they promoted him to single A ball. He had 228 at bats. He batted .346, an on-base percentage of .427, slugging .636. He hit 14 home runs, had 23 stolen bases. Strikeouts were in a great spot at 67. Walks were at 25. He stuffed it. He stuffed every stat that you could possibly imagine as a 24-year-old in single A ball. So obviously, we're going to promote him again to high A. Had 157 at bats. He batted .350, on base percentage .454, slugged .611. So all the way down the list, it's the same stats. We're not afraid of anything. Still had 9 home runs, added another 21 stolen bases. So in 2022, he had 44 stolen bases and 23 home runs while carrying a .346 average.
Yeah.
Little bit older for what we consider to be in the right age group of what we like, but he's just working his way through the affiliates. He did get promoted to Double A, but he only had 2 at bats. So it was at the very end of the year. You know, nothing to speak of there. What do you think, Ross? What's your take here?
Well, a little bit older is
Yeah,
the understatement of the year. He's
well,
24 in the starting the year at single A. That's old. There's 2 paths for this guy, because like I'm looking at these numbers. I just want to detail this just a little bit more. Okay, this guy was a 5-year player at Florida Southern, not a particularly big school to begin with. His freshman year, he hit .250, sophomore, .252. The next year, .274. The 2020 season, .286. None of those numbers for a college player are notable at all. Then suddenly, as a 23-year-old, his 5th year, a 5th-year senior, he hit .387 with a .462 OBP and a .793 slugging percentage at college. What happened? And then all of a sudden he comes into the minor leagues and he's just a masher. He has been ever since he's joined, and very consistently so.
Yep.
A .350 hitter, a guy that doesn't walk very much, but he hits bombs and he steals a ton of bases. So to me, something happened. And I I can't really tell you what changed, but all of a sudden this guy became a burgeoning fantasy superstar. And I'm here to tell you right now, I still don't buy it.
Yeah.
Because either this guy is breaking all models, one of two paths. He's breaking all models because he's going to have this giantly successful career despite all of the red flags, being too old, striking out too much, not having much plate discipline. Or he's going to be a fantasy superstar and he's going to, surprise everybody. And that's a possibility too.
Yeah.
I have him ranked much lower as a result of I'm not buying it. But I do wish him all the luck, and I hope he does. I hope he smashes it.
I also have
a guy that has Vaun Brown on your fantasy team when he is wrecking the league, suddenly batting 350 and stealing all these bases that nobody can seem to understand where this guy came from. I really hope that that's the case, because Scout the Statline's pointing this out. But I'm personally I'm not buying it. I cannot think of another comp like this at all, really. And oddly, Scout the Statline for the player comp on Vaun Brown is Ricky Weeks, who was very different coming out of college. He came out of college
superstar
with very high expectations. Yeah. This guy's going to be awesome. He failed to live up to those expectations. So, I mean, if they're saying a guy that had no expectations is going to be a Ricky Weeks caliber player, I'm all on board for it. Actually, if that's what his career is, I'm stoked for Vaun Brown, because that's a super successful career for a guy that nobody thought was going to be anything. And as I'm looking through it, like it seems plausible to me. Yeah. Minus the timeline, Ricky Weeks was up in the major leagues, much earlier than Vaun Brown will be. But if he has that kind of a career, you guys smashed it. Yeah.
Vaun Brown, guys. This is one of those guys that I want you to go get, and this shouldn't cost you much at all to be.
This guy's not sniffing top prospect lists anywhere.
Yeah, 1,000% should not cost much to go get, so you can store him and just wait to reap the benefits.
Yep.
When I think he's going to be very decent.
Like I said, if he pulls a Ricky Weeks career, which I think is possible, I'm always aiming for like these superstar level careers, but that's a pretty decent career. And you get him for peanuts? Come on. Yeah. What are you waiting for?
Vaun Brown. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're into our top four. Top four of the top 10 Scout the Statline outfielders. And our next player is Emmanuel Rodriguez. He's in the single A affiliate for the Minnesota Twins. He came out of the Dominican Republic. He's 5'10", 210 pounds at 19 years old. Good build on a kid. Ross, will you break down the stats for us?
Absolutely. I've heard he's a thick lower bodied guy. So he's got some heft behind him, and he's a guy that waits for his pitch.
Okay.
And you can see that in the numbers since he became a pro. At 18 years old, the Twins put him at the rookie level. He only hit 214, but he coupled that with a 346 OBP and a 524 slugging percentage, pretty solid power, hit 10 home runs and stole 9 bases. This year, this guy was a high riser. This guy was a Scout the Statline smoke show. He's the thing that everybody wanted to see.
Yeah.
And on our 2022 only board, he was the leader for a significant amount of time. So his 2022 stats were remarkable. On the season, single A as a 19-year-old. He hit 272. And this was, again, that trend that you like to see was on the way up. It was going the right direction all season long, because it started out he was a lower average guy, 240-ish. And even while he was hitting 240, he was ranking at the top of the Scout the Statline list. So as a 272 hitter, I mean, we're talking about a guy that's really special if he can keep that up. His OBP was 493. With a 272 batting average, he had a 493 OBP. This isn't Barry Bonds. This is Emmanuel Rodriguez. And his slugging percentage was 552. This is 199 plate appearances, so it's a somewhat small sample. 9 home runs and 11 stolen bases, very similar to what we saw the previous season. He had 57 walks to 52 strikeouts. So he's a guy that waits for his pitch, and he does damage, as much damage as he can once he gets it. And if he gets on base, he's got ample opportunities to do damage there too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's apparently got the skill set to pull it off. So this guy is a Scout the Statline darling. I love this guy.
I want to state this again. He's 5'10", 210 pounds at 19 years old, and has complete control of the strike zone. As you said, 57 walks to 52 strikeouts, 37 hits, and 9 home runs with 11 bags. That's a damn good stat line. And I don't want everybody to think that you need to have a prospect that's hitting 300. It doesn't end there. I know a lot of people that will look at a prospect and see that he's hitting below 300 and just be like, well, he can't be that good. That's just part of the story, is the 300. 272 with these ratios is insane, guys.
I mean, if you're in an OBP league, I mean, this guy's an instant attraction, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're in average leagues, he was showing improvement there. So I like to think that, I mean, what we're seeing right now and the trajectory he was on is very promising. The most unfortunate thing is that his season was cut short with injury. We can't really tell how well that would have held up or if it would have continued to improve. He has the potential to be like the best prospect in baseball. He has the potential to be that. And he's on Scout the Statline, he's real close. He's number 4 overall.
Certainly would have liked to see a full season with promotions and stuff like that, but just looking directly at the numbers, it really is insane. It's telling.
And this is like a profile you won't find anywhere else. Yeah. I mean, this guy, Scout the Statline projects this for his peak, average peak. 213 batting average, pretty low. 371 OBP, pretty high. 499 slugging percentage, pretty high. 36 bombs and 14 stolen bases. I think the 14 stolen bases, I think that's going to drop over time.
Yeah.
Just based on what I've heard. But some of the best power in the minor leagues, you want to know who this guy's comp is?
Yes, I do.
Sammy Sosa. 600 career home runs. 600 plus career home runs. And Sammy Sosa was pretty fast when he was young too. He stopped running, when he started hitting all the bombs. We might see something like that from Emmanuel Rodriguez. Now, 60 home runs. I don't. Right. I think those days are the days of regularly seeing that are pretty long gone, even though we just saw it.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
we also just saw it from a 6'7", 250-pound man. So I don't want, I want you to keep your expectations way lower than 60 for Emmanuel Rodriguez. But 40, 30 with
I think he's got 40 home run potential at peak. And
Yeah.
think about this. This guy at best right now, he's ranking in the lower end of top 100 lists. Scout the Statline has him at number 4. If you're really digging in and you're like, okay, I need to get the next big thing, I'm not going to give up the farm for it. This is your guy that you speculate on.
There's only 3 left, Ross. There's 3 left in the top 30 outfielders that we have done so far. And these are the guys.
I want to point this out. These are also, starting with Emmanuel Rodriguez, according to Scout the Statline, the 4 best prospects in baseball.
Of all positions.
Everybody.
So we're sitting at number 3 right now. And coming in at number 3 is Mr. Evan Carter. He's with the AA affiliate for the Texas Rangers. He was drafted in round 2, pick number 50 overall out of high school, 20 years old, Evan Carter, 6'4", 190 pounds. One of those players that 2020 put a shell around. And when he came back in 2021, he was placed in single A affiliate for the Rangers, 106 at bats, hit 2 home runs, had 12 stolen bases. His average was 236, 438 on base percentage, slugging 387. So probably a lot of rust to shake off in 2021. But then the good stuff happened. In 2022, he was promoted to A+. He had 376 at bats. His average sat at 287, on base percentage of 388, slugging percentage 476, 11 home runs, 26 stolen bases. Strikeout was in the range of where we like to see it. So he struck out 75 times compared to 108 hits. The world was great with Evan Carter, and then he got promoted to AA for just a little bit of a cup of coffee. Had 21 at bats, batted 429, on base percentage of 536, and slugged 714 with a bomb, 2 stolen bases. Everything in this profile is exactly what we like to look at. It's all there. Ross, take it away, my friend.
So 2021, you mentioned that he was shaking off some rust.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I was on this guy like a fly on shit. I mean, I was all over this guy. I was all over it. For one very simple reason. He had 34 walks and 28 strikeouts that year.
Yep.
It's a relatively small sample. And in my mind, that means that impacted his batting average and potentially his slugging percentage, but the skill was there.
Yep.
And it was really obvious to see in that one ratio right there, because so rarely do we see that in these young guys, 18 years old, especially at single A. What's he doing at single A? I'll tell you what he's doing at single A. The Rangers saw something special there too. They put him on a very aggressive assignment. And this year, I mean, this guy is like a jack of all trades. He does everything. He does it all. He doesn't do anything like particularly remarkably, but he does everything very well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you summarized his full season stats, but 295 batting average, 397 OBP, 489 slugging percentage. He qualified as a 19-year-old for this season, but he's a little on the older end. As you said, he was drafted in 2020, but he was young for that draft class. So I think this guy has the potential to be pretty special.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to be a guy that is going to be putting up huge eye-popping stats in any particular category. And probably not even OBP, but he's going to always have a solid on-base percentage. He's going to be getting out there. I will say this. My counterpart in Scout the Statline, Jordan Rosenblum, this is probably his favorite prospect in all of baseball. He loves this guy. And that's notable because that guy's genius. So
yeah.
I respect his opinion.
So you're saying we have a key cog on a fantasy baseball team, a key cog in Evan Carter.
Yep.
At 20 years old. I agree. I don't see anything wrong with any of this stuff. Yeah, the average was dipped, but we've talked about this plenty of times before. When you see a walking percentage higher than a striking out percentage, that is your guy. That is you've profiled that every single time. Hey, this is what I want, and it doesn't seem to fail at any point.
And I've heard this anecdotally from people that have seen him live. Like Chris Clegg is an example of this. He's gotten a lot of live looks at him. He said consistently he was the best player on the field, and you could just tell.
Yeah.
So if he's the best player consistently in live looks, and we're seeing it in the data, this guy is damn good.
Yeah.
He's going to be a talented ball player, I think. Yeah.
Our number 3 overall prospect, but number 3 in the outfield as well.
Yep.
Now we're going to jump into number 2. Our number 2 prospect overall and our number 2 outfield prospect, Esteury Ruiz, 23-year-old, 6 foot, a little light on the weight, 169 pounder out of the Dominican Republic. Esteury Ruiz, I know you are and have been a big fan before I think anybody else knew who he even was. So I'm going to take a back seat on this one just a little bit because I know how fond of him you are. Please take it away.
So it's interesting you say that because I actually think I was a little late to the game on Esteury Ruiz. But at some point you have to come around to guys that are just blowing the doors off. And I think that's what Esteury Ruiz did this year. So forget the rest of his career right now. I just want to walk you through 2022.
It's insane. It really is. And I'm excited for Ross to start speaking on this because I don't think I've ever seen this profile as far as strikeouts, walks, the speed, and then a little bit of power. Ross, please give everybody exactly what I'm talking about.
All right. So he started out at Double-A, 23-year-old Esteury Ruiz. In 232 plate appearances, he was overmatching the level. He hit 344 with a 474 OBP and a 611 slugging percentage. Almost as many walks as strikeouts. He was promoted to Triple-A, where prior to his trade, he hit 315 with a 457 OBP and a 478 slugging percentage. Power came down just a hair. But I'm not even touching on the best part of his profile, which is his stolen bases. So at AA, he stole 37 bases. And then at AAA, again, with the Padres prior to the trade, he stole an additional 23. He got promoted into the major leagues, so he missed some time in the minor leagues. Then he got traded. He went to the Brewers. There he finished out his season in AAA. He hit 329 there with a 402 OBP and a 459 slugging percentage, very similar to what he did with the Padres. Stole an additional 25 bases. Overall on the season, he stole 85 bases while hitting 332 with a 447 on-base percentage and a 526 slugging percentage, 16 home runs, 85 stolen bases in the high minors. The stolen bases are absurd.
Alone, yeah. You don't even need talking. When you couple it with everything else, it's get out of here. Who are you talking about?
I haven't seen anything like that since Delino DeShields Jr. stole 101 bases and hit 12 home runs.
It's a lot.
And Delino DeShields Jr. at that point was in the low minors, and he hit 287. Esteury Ruiz is hitting 330, stealing 85 bases, hitting 16 home runs. It's really promising. Okay, so now that I've said that, I need to touch on the red flags because there are some.
Yep.
The primary one is his track record, which is fairly poor. He's always had a lot of speed, stolen a lot of bases, potential there, and decent power too, but nowhere in his career has he ever hit anywhere close to 332 like he did this year. So you have to wonder if there's a real adjustment there or if it was just luck. I tend to think that there was a real adjustment.
Yeah. Because
he did it consistently across levels, across teams. The guy was a hitter. Can he do it at the major league level like he did at AAA and AA? That remains to be seen. I'd be willing to take a chance on it, but I'm not going to be giving up something certain for something unknown.
Sure. I'm thinking that he's starting to grow into his body now, and that's where you're starting to see that he can swing the bat and actually barrel something. That's where I'm seeing the 332 average come into play. I think he's finally growing into his body at 23 years old.
You could be right on that. I don't know. What I do know, this guy projects for bonkers speed because he just stole 85 bases in the minor leagues. Not even in a full season of plate appearances because he was in the major leagues there too. Could have stole 100 if he was in the minors the entire season. But what always kind of scares me off of these guys is his ranking. 1/5 of his ranking is based on that stolen base projection. And if he can't hit at the major league level, it doesn't matter if he can steal bases.
He's showing enough on base percentage to be able to reflect that, though, right? I mean, even if he did, yeah. I mean, granted, we want him to stay up in the high averages. Yeah, we want him to stay in the high averages and stuff like that. But he's starting to show a really nice eye in the plate. So if the average did dip to a 250 range, at least he's got the eye to still get on base.
Well, he gets a comp to Deion Sanders.
Oh, jeez.
He's a great NFL player and an okay major leaguer too. He's fast, that's for sure. But his bat was a little shaky, and I think that's the concern we're highlighting with Esteury Ruiz. That's a really good comp.
I think it's really good too. Just massively athletic freak.
Yeah.
Here it is, guys. Your number one overall prospect, not just in the outfield. Ross is crowning him. Crown him.
The king.
He's the king. He's with a team in the Arizona area. They go by the name of the Diamondbacks. He's 22 years old. He's 5'10", 165 pounds. He was drafted in the first round, number 16 overall in 2019, out of the Seattle, Washington area, out of high school. Mr. Corbin King Carroll, CKC. Ross, I know you want to gush, so I'm going to let you. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to let you talk about the number one overall outfielder prospect.
All right. Corbin Carroll, diminutive. He's only 5'10". Not a big guy. He was drafted in 2019. His debut was pretty solid. I wouldn't call it remarkable, but he hit 299. This is at rookie and low A levels. Hit 299 with a 409 OBP and a 487 slugging percentage. Showcased what would become his trademark, I think. Pretty solid power and pretty good speed. 18 stolen bases, only 2 home runs, but hit a lot of doubles and triples to make up for that when he was 18. 2021, he lost the season to an injury. Started in high A, and right off the bat, this guy was just crushing the ball. So as the guy that is behind the updates with Scout the Statline, I could see that this guy was potentially the number one prospect already based on what Scout the Statline was showing me in his small samples. I was like, a few more at-bats and this guy's number one. Then he got injured. He was gone the entire season, so we didn't really get to see how he validated that. But the small sample in 2021 was pretty remarkable. I'm not even going to touch on it because it was only 29 plate appearances. But 2022 came around and he validated all of that stuff through the high minors. This is a guy that doesn't even have 200 plate appearances to his name yet. In Double A, he hit 313 with a 430 OBP and a 643 slugging percentage. He was promoted to Triple A, where he hit 287 with a 408 OBP and a 535 slugging percentage as a 21-year-old. Got a cup of coffee in the major leagues. Again, coming into the season, this guy didn't even have 200 plate appearances, to his credit. But he did exactly what he showed that he could do before that. Pretty good power and a ton of speed. Hit 24 home runs and he stole 31 bases on the season. This guy is the best prospect in baseball. He's got power. He's got speed. He hits for average. He gets on base. The one potential concern is his strikeout rate, but he walks at a healthy enough margin that I don't think that that's an issue. And I don't want to get I don't want to get too big with my comparisons here, but it reminds me a little bit of Mike Trout. A little bit of Mike Trout. Shades of Mike Trout. He's going to have to thicken up like Mike Trout did to have the same kind of trajectory where he moves into being more of a power hitting middle of the order bat rather than like the leadoff guy that Mike Trout was when he first started. I don't know that that's going to happen. I think he's going to have a different kind of career, but the profile right now screams to me a little bit like Mike Trout.
Will you tell us the comp that we have on STS and then give us the rundown of projected stats and stuff like that, please?
Yep. His comp is Hanley Ramirez, who coming up, Hanley Ramirez was a extremely well regarded prospect as well. Had some really, really good early career success. He won a batting title when he was 25 years old. He was like a perennial 300 hitter early in his career.
Yeah.
I think people lose sight of this because his career didn't quite continue to trend that way. But early on, this guy was pretty remarkable. He won the Rookie of the Year, very much a power speed guy. And in his career overall, he was a 289 hitter with a 360 OBP and a 486 slugging percentage. Lots of steals, lots of home runs, 271 home runs, 281 stolen bases. At his peaks for stolen bases, he stole 51. At his peaks for home runs, he hit 33, kind of trended to being less of a stolen base guy and more of a home run guy, which you see is fairly common with these kind of guys. That's a pretty solid comp. And if you got a guy that is going to have a career like that, I think that's pretty good. You want him
for sure. So I've had a burning question as I was prepping for our talks, and in the past years of what you think of the top prospect, Corbin Carroll being ours this year.
Yeah.
Where does he rank in those years? Do you think he is in the same standard as a Vlad Jr., as a Wander Franco, Tatis? I felt that way about Tatis. I don't know if you did, but we knew these guys were going to be at least decent ball players at the very bare minimum. Or do you think he's a tier below that? Maybe like the Chris Bryant's, or even further down?
It's an easy answer for the first part of that question. No, he's not at the level of Wander Franco. He's not at the level of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The second part of the question is a little tricky. Is he at like a Chris Bryant level? That's a hard comparison to make. Yes. Yeah. I think he's probably at that tier. If I was going to give him a placement with those guys, I would say it's with like
just a tier below.
It's a little above Benintendi and a little above Seager. I wanted to say that they were probably similar, but like I don't think that they were, or I don't think that they are. I think Carroll's a little above where Seager was.
Hey, you're talking about a perennial all-star shortstop. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be really good. King Carroll. All hail.
Crown him. There it is, buddy.
Is that it?
We got it.
All right.